Today we're going to be talking about designing for multiple devices. Multiple devices encompasses any kind of device like desktops and laptops, and mobile devices like smartphones and smartwatches and tablets, or any other devices kind of on the horizon in the future that are similar to that. When we talk about how to deal with multiple devices, there's generally kind of three ways that we can approach it. The first is to develop bespoke mobile websites. They have a separate URL and are essentially separate sites that need to be maintained, built, designed, content provided and images provided for it, everything that goes along with that. The other approach is responsive websites, and that's the norm at the moment. Responsive websites have the same URL, it's essentially one site that then kind of adapts and flows onto whatever device is being used. And then thirdly, we talk about apps. Apps tend to be kind of more focused, they tend to provide a logged in experience. Think about kind of Facebook, you open it up and you get your newsfeed straight away. There are different types of apps, we're not going to be talking about that in much more detail here today, but you have hybrid apps, you have native apps, and you have progressive web apps. Hybrid apps are a bit like responsive websites, they're built on kind of web views. Native apps are a bit like bespoke mobile sites, are specific for the platform in question. And progressive web apps, they can be installed as well, but they can kind of be loaded from the kind of browser. The two main things that you need to consider and kind of think about when you work with multiple devices and kind of sketching out and doing responsive design. And that's breakpoints and its content stacking strategy. Breakpoints is essentially what content stacking strategy and responsive websites are based on. So if you think about it, you have your browser window and you start decreasing that browser window inwards. At one point, that layout is going to change and content is going to reflow into different kind of layout. That's what happens when you hit a breakpoint. Content stacking strategy, on the other hand, that defines how your content should behave from different devices. And there's a great quote by Trent Walton where he says that content needs to be choreographed to ensure the intended message is kept on any device and at any kind of width. So those are two main things to keep in mind when it comes to responsive design. In terms of some principles behind designing for multiple devices, the main one should be that responsive websites should be the starting point. So try to keep the core content the same. If you find yourself having conversations about cutting out certain content from mobile, think again, because generally people and users, they want the same content, the same functionality on these different devices. It doesn't mean, however, they should provide the same experience exactly the same way to these different devices. You should optimize both how content is being laid out, how much of it is being shown, how interactions happen, and kind of everything that has to do with that to make sure they kind of work for the device and the project in question. When it comes to touch, make sure that hit areas are large enough, and that goes for desktop and kind of laptops as well. So it's not just for mobile devices such as tablets and smartphones where touch is important. Use a maximum of 2 columns when it comes to smartphones, and then make sure they provide instant value and stay clear of kind of menu pages. This is specifically the case for apps. So with that, try to make sure that you kind of deliver someone straight into the experience. Think about delivering straight into Facebook's newsfeeds, for example. And then in general, avoid bespoke mobile websites as much as possible. It means that you need to maintain different code bases and different content, and that generally means that something is going to have to give. In terms of how to go about doing content stacking strategy, this is going to be the foundation for kind of wireframing that we talk about in the 7th lesson. Start out by sketching out either kind of desktop or mobile as a module overview if you want to go into more detailed, and then give each module a number based on their importance. So be clear on the importance of that kind of content. Then if you started with desktops, then go on to mobile and do the same kind of layout, for example, the home page, then sketch that out and lay out exactly how that content should be prioritized. You might find yourself in a situation where you see actually the content on mobile should be organized slightly differently, and that's fine to some extent. What I'd like you to do for this exercise is actually to work through the home page for your product or service, or take your website that you use on a regular basis and adapt it to different devices that you have based on content-based breakpoints. So this exercise is very much about not thinking too much about the device, but let the size of the device actually guide you. So what I want you to do is to take an A4 piece of paper, take it like this, put it in kind of portrait horizontal view, and then rip it into parts in the middle until you have 2 pieces, and that gives you a piece that is this size. Once you've done that, rip that into 2 pieces again until it gets to kind of that size, and then rip that into a piece again until you get to that size, and then rip this one again into this size. So you end up with 5 different sizes of paper. And what I wanted to do is to do a homepage sketch. And you can start on the smallest, on the largest, anyone in between, but do a homepage sketch for your product or service, sketch it up on one, and then adapt all of that into the kind of smaller devices. And think about the edge of these as the size of the actual device itself. So at the end of the piece of paper, that's essentially a fold. So try to consider the use of it, try to consider what makes sense for the device in question. And that's essentially the exercise for this one. There's a few more articles to read about kind of designing for multiple devices at the last slide of this presentation. And we'll talk more about wireframing, one of the lessons of UX for marketers.